Hey everyone, thanks for coming to the seminar tonight. Tonight we're going to be talking about what you can do with $350,000 worth of equity. And why I chose that number is that most people have somewhere in that neighborhood, if they've owned their home here in the Lehigh Valley for 10, 15, 20 years, not only have you paid your mortgage down almost to the end, but your home has accrued in value over that period of time as well. So it's very likely that you have a number close to that. And if you're getting close to retirement or you're just thinking about downsizing for your next move, this is how much you probably have to work with. So what we're going to look at today is some things to consider. We're going to talk about where you can go for that money, what kind of lifestyle you get, and basically just what that $350,000 looks like. Let me share my screen and we will get going. All right. Okay. Here is, let me just put this over here. Great. Here's our presentation, where $350,000 in equity takes you. We're going to talk about Bethlehem, Easton, Hellertown, and beyond. And let's just get right into it. We're going to keep this one short today. There's a couple of things to know, but mostly this is going to be an exercise in thought, and it's something that you've got to figure out for yourself. But I'm going to show you what things to think about, what things to look at, and then we'll look at a couple of properties quick and see what's out there in some different places. So basically, you probably have between $200 and $350,000 in equity, like I said. What we want to look at is what does that actually get you? And I think it's more than most people think. It doesn't sound like a lot when you think about the prices of houses, but it's really it's really more than enough, especially if you're serious about buying something smaller, something more manageable. So the most important question becomes, what kind of life do you want to have? Because it's not just about price. Your location is what makes your lifestyle. So if you're going to be in a cabin in the woods in the middle of 50 acres, you're probably not going to be talking to a lot of people, and your neighbors are going to be squirrels, and you may be out there chopping wood on the weekends. Do you want to live somewhere where you have a downtown that's walkable? Do you need to be close to family? A lot of people come to me and say, listen, my kids live somewhere else. I want to be close to them. My life was here, my career was here, my friends were here, but now I'm at an age where I need to go be near my grandchildren because I don't see them enough. So sometimes you're moving out of state, sometimes you just need to move to another area just to be a little bit more convenient for babysitting because maybe you don't really have a strong feeling about any of these other things. And then lastly, you want to think about what are the community amenities, and certainly that applies to HOAs and anywhere that you're going to live, where you want to know, where is the grocery store, where's the shopping, where is the hospital, how close is it to the highway, and how long is it going to take me to get to places? Will there be public transportation? First, let's look at downtown Bethlehem. So you'll notice that downtown Bethlehem has a slightly higher range, 350 to 425. This is really for downtown. I mean, if you want to live in near Main Street, historic Bethlehem, you can get a 55 plus condo or townhome, but they're going to be a little bit more on the expensive side. They have a higher HOA. It's definitely a more desirable development and area to be in, but you can still get a townhome or condo for much less than that. It depends how much you want to sacrifice the home portion for the lifestyle portion. So in this picture here that I have, this is an AI generated picture, but truly it looks like downtown. And if you wanted to live in an apartment in one of these buildings, I mean, you could live on Main Street. So it really depends on what it is you want to do, and that's something that you have to decide. So obviously, you've been to Bethlehem if you've lived around here. The pros to Bethlehem is that you can walk to restaurants, shops, steel stacks. You've got culture, events. You can go to lectures at Lehigh. You've got Moravian, Muhlenberg. Um, just there's so many things to do in Bethlehem, and most of them are within walking distance. If you live in downtown, you're going to have no or very little lawn maintenance. And of course, it has an active urban vibe. The cons would be that it might be a slightly smaller space. The HOAs are higher if you're more in town. And of course, street parking can be tight depending on where you live. And it's noisier, especially during Music Fest and those festival times of year. So a compromise might be living slightly outside of Bethlehem. There are a few neighborhoods that are still within walking distance, maybe 10 blocks or less from downtown, from the main street area, depending on how far you'd like to walk. But public transportation hits those, and they have smaller single family homes, 1 or 2 bedrooms, maybe even 3 bedrooms, Cape Cod Ranch, something with a small lot that is manageable for retirement. Downtown Easton. Now, downtown Easton, we all know that this has been up and coming for a long time, but I think we finally crested the wave here. 350 to 425 probably won't even let you get downtown, for the same reason that it's difficult to buy right on Main Street in historic downtown Bethlehem. Um, the buildings tend to have multiple units. They tend to be more expensive. So if you don't want to rent an apartment, there's very few single families that are available to purchase for this price range, but there are options. And in Easton, you would probably be looking at maybe the West Ward. There's some very nice homes over by the Easton Cemetery. South Side is definitely changing. If you have some kind of idea of what that used to be, it isn't quite what it used to be. A lot of people have moved there. The houses are older, certainly, than in other areas, but they have been renovated and fixed up, and it definitely has a community vibe. And then, of course, there's College Hill, and you can still get into a home in College Hill for 350 or less. Not much less, maybe 300 to 350, but you can still get into a single family home for that. I will warn you that the homes in College Hill are few and far between in that price range. So there's a handful of them, maybe 10 a year, that are listed in that price range. So, I mean, you really need to take a look at what's out there and kind of shop and decide whether you want to buy or sell first. And the more difficult the thing you want to buy is going to be, the more I would suggest that you may want to buy and secure that place to live before you sell. You may also decide to go the other direction and just travel for a few months while you're looking. But I digress. Obviously, downtown Easton has a very similar lifestyle to Bethlehem. It's walkable. There's restaurants. There's the arts downtown, the farmers market. Both have river views. It's a little more accessible in Easton, but the lower property taxes is for the time being. That may not stay for very long as the properties increase in value down there, but same cons as Bethlehem too. College students, all of the towns around here have the college student vibe for the most part. The houses are a little bit older. You can find some newer homes, and when I say newer in Bethlehem, maybe like 1960s, 1980s. And then of course the parking challenges, but you're trading that off if you want to live in town. Now, Hellertown's interesting. I consider it to be a little bit of a sleeper town. For a while there, it wasn't very popular. And I don't say it wasn't very popular, but it's really grown in popularity. It's like people finally realized that if you want to be near 78 for commuting, Hellertown is the next exit after Easton and Bethlehem Township. It's very convenient to commute. The Main Street area, although it doesn't extend much beyond Main Street, sometimes maybe only a block or two beyond that, that main drag has a lot of restaurants and a lot of little shops, and definitely is very, very walkable. The town is relatively flat. Um, they have a lovely walking trail, connects to other parts of the Lehigh Valley. Um, and the neighborhoods are kind of quaint, and you can get a little bit more yard than in some of the other areas. So, where you might be buying a townhome that's right next to the other house in Hellertown, you might get a postage size lot with maybe just a little bit of grass, maybe a one car garage, maybe a two-car garage, but ranch, Cape Cod, that type of feeling. So obviously the pros are the slower pace, that the taxes are a little bit lower here and you get a little bit more space for your money, but it is a little bit less walkable than some of the other places. And even though there are plenty of sidewalks, you may not find that there's as many amenities that are within walking distance depending on where you live. And 15 to 20 minutes to city life, it's not even that far if you're talking about downtown Bethlehem. It's very close to everything. Now, Nazareth and Emmaus, I group these together. These are not they're not even remotely in the same place. They're on different sides of town. They have a similar feel. They both have a very old town vibe with the downtown area. Um, but it's more of a suburban feel because it very quickly goes from downtown to countryside and developments. So very family friendly, but not the same city feel that you're going to have with Bethlehem or Easton. So the pros here are going to be that you may have a little bit more space. There's going to be some more newer construction options because the cities, or really their towns to start, were very small. And the construction that was done in the countryside right around the town, and it was done more recently. Both of these are very close to shopping, so that is definitely depends what you want. Emmaus is very close to Lehigh Valley Hospital, if that's important to you, and Nazareth is obviously very close to major shopping, Wegmans, Target, and Walmart. There's quite a few 55 pluses in the Nazareth and Emmaus area as well. All right, let's talk about areas beyond. Really quickly, I just want to touch on a little bit what each of these areas might look like for you. Bucks County is definitely a little bit more expensive. There are a few places that you can still get into a home, but I would plan for a little bit more equity, or a little bit more of an expenditure if you're planning on moving to Bucks County. The Poconos can be a really good place to go if you like lake life, if you want to be in the woods. You may have lower maintenance because you don't have grass to cut, but you will probably have trees to worry about, leaves to rake, and those kinds of things. And of course, anywhere you go, you can pay someone to do that. So, the Poconos may be a good fit for you. One thing to note about the Poconos, is that it was created, most of the communities there were created as vacation homes and vacation communities. So while they have a lot of amenities, they may have a clubhouse, a pool, several lakes, beaches, etc. The houses are not always built for year-round occupancy, so they may not have great insulation. That could affect your utilities, so it's something to consider. And the HOAs are a little bit different than the HOAs in other places. If you're looking at a 55 plus in the Lehigh Valley, for instance, that home is very lock and leave. You can travel and have that home. And when you come back, everything's going to be done. The grass is going to be cut. The outside's going to be ready to go. The snow is going to be shoveled. If you live in the Poconos, those HOAs really only cover the amenities. So you still essentially have a single family home that you need to maintain and do all of the repairs and maintenance on within the bounds of what the HOA allows. So you still have to report to them and go by the rules and regulations, but you do get to use the amenities. So the structure for pricing for the HOA fees tends to be a little bit different. In the communities where it's more of a condo feel, you'll pay a couple $100s a month, and that will take care of all of your exterior maintenance. Whereas most of the places in the Poconos, you're going to pay a yearly fee, and that's to live in that vacation style community, and that can range from $1,000 to almost $8,000 for the most desirable locations, and that's per year. And then, of course, there's the option to move out of state. So, if your children are somewhere else, you can move anywhere, obviously, to be near them. But very popular for people to move it to places further south. Maybe you want to get a really small home here to stay here for the winter, but you can't stand the cold and you don't want to shovel. So you want to have a place somewhere further south. Florida is always very popular. It's losing a little bit of popularity in recent years, though, simply because there's some issues with condo insurance and homeowners insurance due to the large claims and disasters that they've had down there. But a lot of people, because of that, are moving to the Carolinas, and certainly, there's golfing and it's warm, and you can still be on the ocean in the Carolinas. But those are just a few options. So when you're thinking about this, think about what you are trading. So when you are looking for a place that's more walkable, it's probably going to be a smaller space. If it's an HOA, it's going to have a higher HOA. So when you want more space, the trade-off is that you're going to need a car and it's going to be less walkable. There's probably not going to be public transportation. So the question is, how long are you going to be able to drive? How long do you want to drive? Do you want to take public transportation, or do you want to be able to walk to the store? Lower taxes, certainly if you're on a budget for retirement, lower taxes is going to be a consideration, and especially if you're thinking about buying your next home outright with the equity from the home that you live in now. So taxes is a consideration. Lower taxes typically means that there's fewer amenities. It's generally more for areas that are outside of the main parts of the city. Um, and then lastly, active lifestyle. So the more amenities there are and the more things to do, typically the higher the cost. So if you want to live somewhere where there's an arts center like Steel Stacks, or if you want to live somewhere where you can, walk out your door and, jump on the dock and, throw your kayak in the water, that's going to cost a little bit more, obviously, than living somewhere where you have to drive or, travel a little bit to do that. Here's an example of what it might actually cost for a month. This is if you had a $375,000 home and you put just $200,000 down. Now, you may choose not to put all of your equity in your home, or you may choose to do that. I suggest you talk to a financial advisor. If you need a recommendation, I do know a few, and they can walk you through what's the best situation for you and what makes sense for the amount of money that you are going to be looking at. What is your age? What's your expectation from retirement? And they'll help you plan and make decisions that work for you financially. Anyway, back to this example. So let's say that we do this. Your mortgage at that rate would be on $175,000 because we've put 200 down. And let's just say a nice even rate of 6.75. You're looking at about $1,100 a month for mortgage. Property taxes are going to range, obviously, by town, but 450 to 750 is pretty standard. You can assume that amount. And insurance is going to be roughly in that 120 to 150 a month. That is property insurance. And what's really interesting about this is the next box is HOA, which I have marked at 200 to 350. It's going to be probably in that $300 range for a 55 plus. But if you think about insurance, your homeowner's insurance will go down if you have a condo where you do not own or maintain the outside of the home. So your insurance could be half of that, and that might help cover some of the cost of the HOA. So maybe when you think about it in those terms, as a whole, your monthly costs make more sense in an HOA. Utilities, again, they could be $200 to $300 a month, but it is worth considering if you buy that cabin in the woods that doesn't have any insulation, you might be paying closer to $600 a month if it's got electric heat in the wintertime. So things to think about, but all in, you could be in the $2,100 to $2,700 a month range based on this scenario. Here's a quick chart of what property taxes look by town. On average, Bethlehem is higher than the rest of them, with Nazareth and Emmaus coming in second, then Easton and Hellertown. And these are averages. So You can still find a house because of the way taxes are are determined here in Pennsylvania. They're not changed when the home is sold. So in New Jersey, the cost basis for taxes changes every time the house is sold. Here in Pennsylvania, it's only changes when the county or the town decides to reassess. So essentially, what that means is you can buy an older home that has lower taxes than a newer home, and that is almost always the case. And then that will vary from town to town as well. Question is, where do you fit into all of this? And these are the things that you need to think about. Think about with your partner and just decide what are the things that are important to both of you. Maybe it's not the same for both of you, but maybe you can find a place that is a compromise. So, do you want to walk? Do you want to drive? Do you want to be have in a place that's quiet, or do you want to have a lot of activities? Do you want more space or less maintenance? Are you going to leave for vacation? Because maybe you don't mind the maintenance, but the truth is you want to travel 3 months out of the year. Then you might fall into that less maintenance category. And then lastly, do you need to be close to family? And that can look like lots of different things. It could look like moving to the town next door so you're closer for babysitting, or it could look like moving across the country to another state. Here's just a quick story. This is just an kind of an average story of someone who had the equity. They were looking for something walkable. They decided to move to downtown Bethlehem. They bought a condo down there, and now their mortgage is about $1,000 a month. So all in, it's $2,400. And of course, they enjoy walking and they enjoy the restaurants in the downtown. So they're very happy with that scenario. Here's your homework. I want you to pick your top three locations, look at listings in each area, just online if you wish, and then visit those towns. I would say grab lunch and walk around, but I would also say go back in the evenings because things are different at night and you really want to see what the vibe is all times of day. Next, check the property taxes for some homes that you like. And then ask yourself, do you feel like you could live there? Like, where do you see yourself? And don't think just about today or the next 5 years, but think about how long do you want to stay in that home? Is it going to be 5 years or is it going to be 20 years? Okay, and now we have come to basically the end of this. I'm going to show you a couple of properties before we go. Next week, don't miss it. We're going to be talking about why your neighbor's house sold in 8 days and yours could sit for 60 or more. So before we go, let's take a look at some properties that I pulled up. So here we go. I'm going to share my screen. Perfect. Okay, so I just thought this was a little bit interesting. I mean, I looked in the Lehigh Valley, and you can find properties in the price range we're talking about in really any city. So, very simple. Look in the towns, you know the towns, take a look at them. But I thought it was interesting to take a look at what you could get in different parts of the country. So, if you just take a peek here, we could start with Florida. I picked Vero Beach in Florida. And if we take a look at what's available there, we can look over here on the left side of the screen. And you can see that we're looking at condos. And these are probably 55 plus communities. They look like they've got an HOA just based on the style and design and how close they are, but very similar to the style that you can get here. Obviously not with the Spanish influence, but I think they're going to be pretty similar two-bedroom styles. This one obviously has um, a clubhouse with a pool, so that might be important to you. And then here's a few single families. This one looks like it's not in an HOA, but again, it's a ranch, so that has some possibilities certainly. Now let's slide up the coast and see what you can get in North Carolina. Okay. Or South Carolina. I think I picked Myrtle Beach. Yeah, South Carolina. Great. So let's see what you can get in Myrtle Beach. This is actually in Myrtle Beach proper. So I was surprised to find that you can buy a home in Myrtle Beach. Here's a little ranch for 314. You can buy a condo if you want, if you want no maintenance whatsoever, just live in a high rise and live totally differently, like apartment style living. But here's probably another 55 plus, another little ranch. This one's a little bit more of a townhouse. So you can see that there are options there as well in this price range. It's actually a very good price range. Let's slide up to Boston. Let's say that you're crazy and you want to go somewhere where it snows more and the weather is worse. I'm just kidding. Some people have family there and they really like New England. I have family in New England. I get it, but tends to be a little bit more expensive. You can see how close it is to Boston, but it's right on the main line here. So there is a train that goes into Boston if you like to get into Boston quickly. Um, but yeah, you're going to get something smaller, but there are homes available. And they certainly have a different style than what we were looking at. Here's a little twin. Here's one by itself. So there are some options here's a ranch, nice ranch. So if you move to the Boston area now let's go all the way over across the country. Let's check out San Antonio and see what they have in San Antonio. Totally different construction. I love doing this, and you can see I'm just on kw.com. Very generic, very easy to remember. It's easy to search on here. They've got a lot of filters and features, which I really like. But anyway, so San Antonio also has some very nice properties. Single floor living, much more common in the South, by the way. A lot of single story homes. They just had space, so they didn't need to build up. And, architecture just went a little bit of a different direction out west than it did here. Now let's check out Colorado Springs. A lot of people think that Colorado is too expensive unless you live in the middle of nowhere. And Colorado Springs is not the middle of nowhere. That's one of the main cities in Colorado. So if you check this out, you can get some little tiny houses with not a lot of yard, but that's really great for downsizing. This one's a 2 bedroom, 1 bath for 360. Here's kind of a condo, 2 bedroom, 3 bath, and some other attached twins, condos, townhouses. Here's one with a little fenced in yard if you've got a dog. Still 339 in town. Everything is very walkable in that city. And if you like that Colorado vibe, you're close to all of that. So good to see that you can get something almost everywhere. Here we go. Let's do something totally different. We're going to look in Phoenix for a second and let's see what we can get in Phoenix. And I can already see this is very similar to the other homes that we were seeing in San Antonio. It's kind of a sunnier place. Actually, these look a little more like the ones in Colorado where we've got the townhomes, but still some single story options. The prices are good. Sunny all the time. So, and then lastly, I thought let's pick some place that is notoriously expensive. So I chose San Francisco just to see what you could get for this amount, if anything. And contrary to HGTV, you can still get something. And no, this little one here is not the one that is for sale. It's actually this vacant lot. But that doesn't mean you can't get something. So if you take a look at this, you just have to adjust what it is you're looking at. So if it's your dream to live in San Francisco proper, then you may need to buy condo. And that's what this is here. This is a condo building. Same here. You're going to be feeling like it's an apartment, especially if you've lived in the Lehigh Valley your whole life, but you own it and it will accrue in value just like a house does. So, you're not really losing anything. This one has parking. This is a little bit more of a townhouse feel. There's going to be some really cool spaces for this price. This one is really very small, 409 square feet. Great if you're living by yourself or if you really like to be together and have that tiny home vibe, but it's in a nice location. So that's really, you're going to trade one for the other. But the point I'm trying to make is that pretty much no matter where you go, you're going to be able to find something when you have that much equity. And even if you have slightly less equity, that's still a really nice down payment that can get you a low enough monthly payment that it feels comfortable into retirement. So that's all I have for tonight. So hopefully you'll join us next week for the seminar about why your neighbor's home sold so quickly and yours might sit on the market. I'm going to give you tips and tricks about how to get your house sold quickly, and I'm going to talk about pricing it correctly and staging it, which are really the two most important things. Okay, thank you so much for coming and have a great night.